In this chapter, we are going to go over some basics of retirement planning. And as you notice right there, starting early. The time to start your retirement planning is yesterday. You should never wait until later to get on your retirement, because time is the biggest element when it comes to retirement planning. Misconceptions about retirement. My expenses will decrease when I retire. No, my retirement will only last 15 years. That could be true, but it more than likely not. Social Security and my company pension will pay for my basic living expenses. That may be true, but you shouldn't just sit back and assume that will happen, because you don't know, especially if you're in your 20s, what's going to happen 40, 50 years from now. More misconceptions about retirement. My pension benefits will increase to keep pace with inflation. They may increase, Social Security, pension, etc., but there is no guarantee that they will increase with inflation, meaning that you run the risk of your purchasing power going down. So even if you bring the same amount of dollars, you cannot live the same life, because you won't be able to buy the same things or afford the same rent or mortgage, etc. My employer's health insurance plan and Medicare will cover my medical expenses. You don't know what your health situation will be 40 years from now. There's plenty of time for me to start saving for retirement. Technically speaking, yes, you can start later, but it will cost you. It will come at a high cost not starting to save now, even if it's a small amount of money. Even if it's $20 a month, it's gonna do a lot better doing that starting now than putting thousands of dollars 10 years later. Saving just a little bit won't help. That's exactly what I just said. Nope, that's not true. Every little bit counts. What's more important is the time that it's compounding versus the amount. Tackling the trade-offs. Okay. If you buy a state-of-the-art home entertainment system and you drive expensive cars and take extravagant vacations now, don't expect to retire with plenty of money. This does not apply for people that have a safety net or a trust fund, or their parents is going to inherit them a lot of money. Whatever the case may be, this is for your average person. And all it means is the more you consume now, the less you will be able to consume at retirement. That's just the trade-off. Only by saving now and curtailing current spending can you ensure a comfortable retirement later. Yes, so the less you spend now, the more you save, the better retirement you're going to have. However, we're not going to get a lot of details about this, but it's okay for you to still enjoy life within moderation now. What we're saying is, don't put all your money to enjoy life now and have nothing for the future. But yeah, the less you enjoy yourself now, the more you're able to enjoy later. Here are a few numerical examples of the importance of starting early. Let's say you start at age 25 and you put aside $300 a month. And at a 9% return, that is a fairly easy number to achieve. Now, remember, there's a 9% average. So some years going to be much higher than 9%, and some years going to be much lower than 9%. But over the 40-year period, averaging 9% return is very achievable, very easy to achieve. Then at age 65, you will have $1.4 million. Now, let's compare that to somebody that starts at 35 So, delays 10 years of ever putting any money aside, and they start investing $300 a month at age 65, they're only going to have a little over a third of that. And that's just to show you how that 10 years of starting early is really what drove that increase. That increase between $550,000 and $1.4 million. If you wait 20 years and you begin at 45, you will only have $20,000 at age 65. The same $300 a month, starting at 25 versus 35 versus 45. Notice the huge differences. And these differences will be there. Those big differences will be there, even if it's $100 a month. Now, what typically happens is when you're 25, maybe you can do 300, maybe not. But hey, it's still better to start with 100 and then increase whatever you can, whenever you can. But the key is starting early with whatever amount of money. If by the time you're 35, you can do $400 or $500 a month or even more. A lot of people can do more, then so be it. But the key thing is, even if it's a little bit, even if it's less than 300, even if it's $20, start at 25. Now, people are spending 16 to 30 years in retirement on average. It really varies. And what happens is that as technology improves, people are living longer. A private pension and Social Security are often insufficient to cover the cost of living. It's typical the case. Not for everybody. Depends what career you choose and how you work, but you should have supplemental income through other retirement plan investments. Inflation may diminish the purchasing power of your retirement savings. We touched on that. Inflation can really put a hurt on your retirement. The power of compounding. Well, these number examples, that is the power of compounding. Compounding investment earnings is what can make even small investments become larger given enough time. Time is the number one driver. Money you put into savings account earns interest, then you earn interest on the money you originally put in, plus on the interest you've accumulated. It's the typical thing, interest on interest. Now, again, when we use the word savings account in personal financial planning, is not always just your typical savings and checking account type thing. We're talking about just money you save in different financial tools as well, where there's IRAs, 401ks, brokerage accounts, money markets, etc. So the basics of retirement planning. First, analyzing your current assets and liabilities, and then estimate your spending needs and adjust them for inflation. Next, evaluate your planned retirement income. Finally, increase your income by working part-time if necessary. So first, pretty much we're saying, what do you have now? What is your situation right now? Where are you right now financially? Where do you want to be when you retire? You set a number. How much money do I want to come in? And is it just for inflation, et cetera? There's some more calculations to this, but have a goal. This is how much money I need to have this type of income when I retire. And then you start drawing a plan with the tools available to you, how you're going to get from where you are to where you want to be. If the current scenario doesn't really facilitate enough cash to put in retirement to get where you want to be, then you need to find other sources of income or adjust your expectations. The other item that can come in play is you'll have to work a little longer, retire later. Conducting a financial analysis, review your assets. Housing, if owned, is probably your biggest single asset. You could, at retirement, you could sell your home to buy a less expensive one and invest the difference. Or you can do it now as well. And it goes back to what we're saying as spend less now in order to save to get more in retirement. This is the same thing as having the flashy car. It's your choice. If large equity, a reverse annuity mortgage could provide extra retirement income. So once you are in retirement age, if you have a lot of equity, there's ways to play with that to get money. And what you do is you're selling the house in pieces for payment. It's just a way to look at it. And you get money. Typically, depending on the financial planning, it could mean more money or guaranteed amount a month during retirement. There's a lot of different ways to play with reverse mortgages. Review your assets. Some more details to look at. If you have life insurance, some life insurance have cash value, depending on the life insurance plan you have. That cash value before you die can be converted to annuity. And that's another way to generate income. Other investments, review investments and consider taking the income from them or receiving the dividends rather than reinvesting them. This would be at retirement. During your investment period, your working years, you want to reinvest your dividends. You want to put everything back into the account, brokerage accounts or investment accounts, IRA, 401k, with the goal of growing it as fast as you can, as aggressive as you can. Once you are in retirement, you could consider then start taking those dividends, those interest payments as part of your income. If a divorce happens, retirement assets are affected by divorce. Pension benefits are considered marital property to be divided. If one of you is receiving a pension at retirement and then a divorce happens, the spouse not receiving the pension is entitled to a percentage of that. How much that varies, there's a calculation, but it could be substantial. Plan as a good 50%. Division of pension benefits generally depends on the length of the marriage. To correctly divide retirement benefits, a legal document must be created. Qualified domestic relations order. It goes to the divorce court. Spending patterns. Where and how you live will probably change. So now we're talking about retirement living expenses, your expenses during retirement. Some expenses may go down or stop. For example, if you are doing a defined contribution retirement plan, you are putting money every month when you're working years into the 401k. When you retire, that monthly amount becomes non-existent, that money going out. So now that is not an expense that you have, money that you have to plan. Some people during retirement, they turn around some of the income they get and put it back in as, say, an RA, as a kind of brokerage account. Yes, you can do that. But the standard contribution thing, that may stop. Work expenses, less gas, lunches out, clothing, part of the work expenses, not just your regular clothing, you probably become more casual, but also just the clothing that you have to be wear suits or dresses or professional wear. Housing expenses. Now, maybe your house is paid off by the time you retire, or you may go ahead and just change to a smaller home because, let's say, your kids don't live with you anymore. Some people, even if they got the house paid off, they may choose to sell the house, take the money, use it towards as income for retirement, and then just go pay rent somewhere at a smaller property or something like that. There's a lot of different ways that you can deal with the housing expenses. Federal income taxes will probably be lower. Yes. However, income tax planning, it can get complex. But yes, there's a possibility that you pay less income tax as a total because Social Security is not taxed, and other types of if it's an IRA, a Roth retirement account, that doesn't get taxed. If you have a brokerage account, there's an initial amount of the capital gains that doesn't get taxed. So you only start getting taxed after a certain amount of money, depending where it comes from as well. Retirement living expenses. Now, which ones may go up? If you have life insurance, definitely the older you are, the more it might charge you. Unless you did some kind of whole term when you were very young, and that'll be a different situation. However, healthcare insurance, it could go up as well. Medical expenses increase with age. I don't think that needs a lot of explanation. Expenses for leisure activities may go up. And the reason is maybe your taste on leisure experience activities, the quality of them have increased, but not necessarily the case. When you retire, all of a sudden you have a lot of time in your hands. So you do a lot more leisure stuff than you used to when you were working because, well, you get bored if you don't. Gifts and contributions may increase. This happens. Typical behavior doesn't mean that you're going to start giving more gifts and contributions, but it is common that as you get older, that people start getting more gifts to family members, etc. Adjust your expenses for inflation, which will cause your expenses to increase over the course of using retirement. Inflation, that's going to go up on average always. Planning your retirement housing. Think about where you want to live, climate, people, activities, transportation, taxes. There's a reason why a lot of people retire in Florida. Climate is one of them. Consider the cost of moving and the social aspects of moving. Proximity to children. If your kids moved away for work or stuff like that, sometimes as you get older, then you want to move closer to your kids. Or maybe friends, maybe you're the one that moved away for work and now you want to go back to your hometown. Type of housing, 92% prefer to stay in their own home. That is very common, but it's a trade-off and it really is a unique situation for each person. Sometimes it's better to stay in your own home, financially speaking. Sometimes it's better to go ahead and downgrade or sell the home because you built a lot of equity and move to a different location that it has lower cost of living. Think about a universal design home is built to accommodate potential physical disabilities that may occur in old age. Generally speaking, the simplest form of this is if you have a 2-story house, a lot of people after a certain age change to a 1-story home because going up and down the stairs becomes an issue. If not built using universal design, existing home may need to be retrofitted. Now, the example I gave is just the most basic form about changing the home to suit you in your old age. Now, let's think about potential actual health issues that you may have, and you need a more accessible home. Avoiding retirement housing traps. To uncover hidden taxes and other costs of a retirement area, if you're planning to when you retire, write or call local chamber of commerce. We're not talking just about like these places where they specialize on retirement type homes and people retire in those areas. We're also just talking about areas that are attractive to people retiring. But then you want to do this. You want to check on your local property taxes, economic profile. Does it really make financial sense to move to that area? They may have a lot of amenities to attract retirees, but then there's these costs of living that you want to make sure you understand before you get into that. And that's what they say, check on state income taxes. Florida, for example, no personal income tax in the state of Florida for now. But that's one example. Inheritance taxes, something to think about, because if you're going to leave inheritance after you retire, the next stage is what you're going to leave to your kids or family members, etc. So each state may have a different tax percentage. Some more retirement housing traps. Call a local CPA to find out what taxes are rising. Subscribe to a local Sunday paper. Well, I guess in this modern day would be check the local news online. Estimate what your utility, healthcare, auto insurance, food, and clothing costs will be in that area. Talk to local residents. Rent for a while instead of buying immediately. That is good advice, retirement or not. If you move to a new city, a new area for work or whatever it is, even if you have the down payment and even if you understand the financial differences of buying versus renting, it is recommended to always rent for a little while when you're in a new area. So when you buy, you will have a much, much better and informed decision. Let's talk about Social Security. Most widely used source of retirement income, covering almost 97% of U.S. workers. Meant to be part of your retirement income, but not the sole source. It's a supplement. Use the Social Security Administration's calculator to estimate your retirement benefits. If you go online on their website, there's plenty of tools, and you can actually access your personal account to see where you are, financially speaking, in the Social Security with the contributions you have made, so on. For retirement benefits at age 65 to age 67, depending on the year you were born, but you can also start at 62 with a reduced amount. All it means is that retirement age starts a certain number. The earlier you retire, the lower the monthly check. In the most simplest way to explain this, if you expect to live for so many years in the future after retirement, then it's recommended to wait until retirement a little later to get the bigger check. But let's say you have a lot of health issues and it doesn't look too good that you're going to be retired for a very long time, then you want to start collecting the check earlier. The value of the lower check will be higher because you start collecting it and you only live so many years. There are ways to calculate the optimal year to retire based on your life expectancy when it comes to Social Security. Employer pension plans. Okay, so there's two key ones: defined contribution and defined benefits. We're going to briefly explain them here, but we're going to explain the general characteristics. Each employer is going to have specific details of how these work, and then you have to make a choice based on those details. Now, let's talk about defined contribution plan. Individual account plan for each employee. Money purchase pension plans. Your employer sets aside a % of your earnings each year. Stock bonus plans. These are different types of defined contribution. Your employer contribution is used to buy stocks in your company for you. Profit sharing plans. Your employer contribution depends on the company's profits. Now, it doesn't mean there's going to be one or the other. It could be a combination of these. But the point is that there's a defined amount that your company is going to contribute to the employer pension plan in these different ways. This is where you will see, you will hear the terms like 401k, etc. Like here, this is part of the defined contribution plan as well. Then there are the salary reduction or 401k. There's 403b or 457 plans. They all pretty much behave the same. The reason for the difference is it has to do with the type of employer you have. And then there's some nuances to it, but the basics and the way they operate are pretty much the same. This is what happens. It's going to be an account. It's going to have mutual funds or some other type of portfolio, and that money is going to be invested there. What's going to happen is employer makes non-taxable contributions and reduces your salary by the same amount. So you put in some and they match it. And that money, it's already outside the company. So that's your money from this point on. There's some restrictions how you use it until you retire, but that's a different story or something else to talk about at a different point. But that way, you're not dependent of the finances of the company when it comes for the pension plans where the money is inside the company. Employee contributions are tax deferred. Now, that yes, on the traditional, what happens is that when you put in the money in this account, you can deduct it from the tax, the amount that you get taxed on, your taxable income. So it doesn't get taxed. But since it's deferred, that means that later when you retire, you start taking money out, then you get whatever tax rate you belong there. It's typically beneficial that way because it grows faster for less financial impact on you now. And since in the future, you're probably expecting lower federal taxes, and depending on what state you're on, no tax on the state level, much lower federal taxes, it becomes then an added advantage to do it that way. Some employers match a portion of the funds you contribute. So that varies the percentage they match. These plans are referred to as tax shelter annuity, TSA plans. Yes, and to be honest, there's all kinds of different names out there for it. The point is that you don't pay tax on that money now. You pay tax later, and it could add an advantage if you have a better tax situation. All earnings grow without current federal taxation. Everything is just deferred. Ordinary income taxes will be due when you receive the income. But as I mentioned earlier, a lot of the money you get at first doesn't get taxed. So your really taxation doesn't start capping until a certain amount after. It just depends on the strategy you have. They are also the Roth accounts. We'll discuss those a little later. Employer will pay you, this is defined benefit. Now we're moving from defined contribution to defined benefit, where the employer will pay you a certain amount per month when you retire based on your pre-retirement salary and the number of years of service. What that means is they'll have a formula. Each employer is going to have a different formula, and they're just going to calculate your some kind of number that is a combination of the years you worked and the salary you're earning, the highest salary you're earning, and then it's a percentage amount. And then what it is once that established and you retire, they start paying you that. Now, these are typically funded by the employer themselves. So there is some risk to this. Now, employer makes the investment decisions for you and their contributions, but your benefit amount stays the same regardless of how the investment performed. So yes, the money that is being set aside for your pension gets invested and all that, but the performance of those investments do not affect the formula that you fall under when calculating your pension. Plan portability and protection. What happens if you change employers? You can carry earned benefits from one employer pension plan to another's when you change jobs. Now, yes and no, it just depends on the plan you're on, if it's vested or not, because vesting is your right to at least a portion of the benefits you have accrued under an employer pension plan, even if you leave the company before you retire. So if it's to give a quick example of what you may typically see out there, if you're a defined contribution plan, let's say the 401k, that money was already deposited into a third party account. It's your money, but a third party. It's not the company keeping the money in there. However, some companies you are immediately vested, meaning that money is 100% yours on the spot, no matter how long you work for the company or not. Some other ones say, we're going to put the money in there now, but if you stay with us, let's say, for example, less than 5 years, you only keep a percentage of that, and that will be vested until so on and so forth. Pension Benefit Guarantee Corporation is a quasi-governmental agency that provides pension insurance, pays reduced benefit if pension plan fails. So this is a way to then cover that risk that I mentioned earlier when it's a defined benefit plan, where the company is pretty much funding your pension. If something goes wrong with them, it may affect your pension. However, your pension amount may be affected if this needs to kick in. Individual retirement accounts. These are your ROAs. This are RRA, something you can do yourself. Traditional, classic. Traditional is the word you're typically going to hear out there, just meaning what I explained earlier, where You deposit it now, tax-free, and taxes are collected later. However, there's some limitations here. This is just to supplement your retirement or define whether it's defined contribution or benefits. You can only contribute, and this dollar amount changes. As of right now, it's actually above $6,000 now. But if you're over 50, you can deposit even more, like it's a catch-up amount, like they say. So it does go up from year to year. The point is that you have a cap of how much you can put in there. Depending on your tax filing status and income, your contribution may be tax deductible. Yes, but in the traditional side, typically that's what happens. You don't pay tax now. And that's what I say the earnings accumulate also tax-free as you start taking it out. That's traditional. But you pay taxes as you withdraw money as income. Now, what it says here, you must begin withdraw funds by age 70. Now, it doesn't mean that you cannot withdraw funds before that. What it's saying is that you cannot let it sit there forever. At a certain point, you have to start using it because they're not going to let you just keep on growing tax-free. Roth IRAs is kind of a flip side. In the traditional, you don't pay taxes now, you pay taxes later. In a Roth IRA, you do after-tax money now, so you pay tax on it now, your regular income, and then you just go ahead and collect anything that comes out of there later tax-free. Some other IRAs out there, spousal IRA, lets you contribute amounts on behalf of your non-working spouse if you file a joint tax return, tax deferred interest and earnings. So what happens is that you have to be employed and earning income in order to do an IRA. But if you have a stay-at-home wife, then you can open a spousal IRA if you file your taxes jointly. Rollover IRA is a traditional IRA that accepts rollovers of all or a portion of your taxable distribution from a retirement plan or another IRA account. You can roll over the Roth IRA. Rollover, just as sounds a very popular term, you just roll it over from one account to another without getting hit like if you were to withdraw and redeposit, getting hit with taxes. Education IRA. So this is something that you can start an IRA with the purpose of education. It's not a retirement thing. Is that when your child or your kid is of age to go to college, for example, then this can grow tax-free and it can be used towards college with that tax advantage. More IRAs, all kinds of IRAs. SEP are funded by employers, simplest retirement plan for self-employed. So what happens when you're self-employed, as in you have your own business, and it's not a corporation, like that'll be different because the corporation then can treat you as an employee of the corporation. But if you're self-employed, then the way you set these up a little different because of regulations out there, limit and control what you can and cannot do if you're employee versus self-employed. Withdrawals of the IRA, lump sum withdrawal tax as ordinary income. That's, let's say you have a traditional IRA that you didn't pay taxes, and then later when you withdraw it, you're going to be paying tax on that. Installment withdrawals based on life expectancy. There are some calculations that it's not just IRA, they're actually for retirement accounts, not just IRAs, where you have to there in certain situations there's a minimum you must withdraw. Place an annuity with lifetime payments. That's something you can do. Put it into an annuity. Withdrawals prior to age 59 and a half are subject to a 10% tax in addition to the ordinary income tax. So if you put money in an IRA, you have access to that money. But if you need it and take it out before 59 and a half, your age, you're going to get an extra 10% tax. Care plans, self-employed also, people and their employees. More complicated than SEP, but more benefits. Something to definitely discuss with a financial planner on the difference of these two. Sometimes these are more beneficial, sometimes these are more beneficial. Annuities, you will hear about these a lot. In the financial world, typically we suggest that this is one of your later options that you go for. You should always take care of your 401ks, your IRAs, and all other forms of retirement investments you can do before you jump into annuities. And it's because of the return on it that you get. But some people do like annuities because there's a lot of safety there. But notice, buying an annuity, if you have fully funded all other retirement plan options, that is the recommended advice. Can buy an annuity with the proceeds of an IRA. So you put me in an IRA, it grows, and then you use that money to go into an annuity. Can buy one with a single payment or with periodic payments. You can just put a chunk of money now and let it sit there. And then when you retire, you use it. There's the put a chunk of money there and start getting money right away. And then there's the one you just put in periodic payments and then later start withdrawing money. You can also buy an annuity that begins payouts immediately or a later date. That's what I just mentioned. Interest accumulates tax-free until payments begin. Now, that is a difference between, let's say, your standard bonds. Bonds, even if you're not collecting interest and you have a long-term bond, you will have to pay taxes in most cases on the interest earned, even if you have not collected it. Types of annuities: immediate annuities, payments begin right away, as we mentioned. Deferred annuities, income payment begins at some time in the future. The cash value of life insurance policy may be converted to an annuity. This is a very popular item that happens. But again, annuity should be something to really understand on the return on your investment. So making sure you're putting your money in the right financial tool to get the most out of it. Living on your retirement income. Now, make sure you receive all retirement income to which you're entitled. You may hear in the news all the time, people battling with Social Security, people battling with their pension accounts, all kinds of things. Just make sure you can get it. Just make sure that you are getting all of them. And if you have a variety of accounts that will provide you with income in your retirement, you want to make sure you're taking all of them. Just keep good track. Develop a spending plan for retirement. Understand the money coming in and what should go out. If you have the skills and ability, do some things yourself that you use to hire others to do. Just simplest example, in order to save money, since now you have all time in the world, let's say you used to pay somebody to clean your house. Maybe now you clean your house and you're paying yourself, in other words. Take tax advantages. Take advantage of all tax savings for retirees. The IRS will not do it for you. If you don't fill out your paperwork correctly, you might end up paying more tax than you should. There's all kinds of things that you can take advantage of at the federal and state levels. It's not just the IRS. Tax benefit for older Americans. They are there, and not just the IRS, but check out your state level. Living on your retirement income. Working during retirement may be a ideal way to add to retirement income. Okay, you may be limited on how much you can earn during retirement. And there's a trade-off because your Social Security may go down. You just need to be familiar with the formula and how that works. A lot of people do it, not just because it puts a little extra money in your pocket every month, but as we mentioned earlier, people get bored in retirement. So if you're used to working 40, 50 hours a week or more, and all of a sudden you can do easy 20 hours on an easy job with low responsibilities, but it just puts a little extra money. So it's not just about the income, it's about staying active. Investing for retirement. Guaranteed income part of your retirement fund should be in lower yield, very safe investment. Invest some to keep up with rate of inflation. Okay, so this piece here, it's talking about that once in your retirement, you need to step away from the higher risk, high growth investments and move into the lower risk, but lower return in order to keep that minimum cash you need to come in for your daily life. Also, however, it's okay to then treat that income also like you did when you're working, and take a piece and reinvest back in it in order to at least keep up with rate of inflation if your regular situation is not keeping up with it. Dipping into your nest egg, dip into savings with caution, since you do not know how long you'll live. So this is what happens. If you're in a defined pension, it's less of an issue here, uh, because that amount will keep on coming in until you die. But every other, and Social Security, for example, but everything else that is like a brokerage account, IRA, 401ks, those have a specific amount of capital in there generating your income. Some people say that, okay, it's okay to use that capital and reduce it as time goes by, with intent that by the time you do die, there's still some money in there. That's fine, but you used it. There's less issues if you're not really thinking about leaving any inheritance and things like that. That's fine. But what we're saying is that will be the dipping into your nest egg, that you have to be careful. If you live a lot longer than you thought you were going to, and you were dipping into your nest egg, you might put some serious constraints on your quality of life in the later years. That'll be it for this video. See you on the next one.